All right, well, hi, my name is Matt. This is my MFA show, and I'll just get started talking about how I got involved with doing this project. A while ago, I was invited to be in a show where everybody made a zine that was just done as a black and white Xerox. And I was basically asked to be in the show because that's the kind of work that I've always done. I've always just put my photographs in some sort of small Xerox black and white zine. So I was asked to be in the show, and decided to make all of the work in black and white since it was going to be printed in black and white. Before then, I had been doing a bunch of color. So I shot everything digitally and did it in black and white, and I was using camera settings that were giving me a lot of noise and pixelation in the images. And I became really interested in how that looked a lot like the halftone that you see in Xeroxes. So so that's where the aesthetic for all of this work came from. Around the same time, I was also playing around with this idea of giving the title Predicting Earthquakes, which is the title of this show, to something. Because I grew up in Southern California. I was in the Northridge earthquake when I was a kid, and earthquakes are just something that I've always lived with and I've always been kind of interested in. And that led me to be really interested in the idea that you could actually predict one, because that's the weird thing about this kind of natural disasters, that it's something that can't be predicted. So I thought that was really interesting. So I was getting interested in that and making these black and white images that looked like these halftone Xeroxes. And the two just basically began to merge, and I started researching earthquake prediction and found out a lot about its history and the theories that are behind it. And I noticed that the time when it really became popular was in the 60s and early 70s. And so I started to go through and research all of the scientific research and documentation that had gone into all these different theories associated with earthquake prediction at the time. And they were all coming from that time period. And all of the photographs that I were finding were all printed using this halftone process, which is basically, it's a bunch of single colored dots all together, and they all come together to form a single binary image. So it's actually supposed to look like a continuous tone when it's not. It's made up of several little dots. So the whole thing has to be read a certain way in order for the single image to come together. And I found that really interesting because that's basically pretty much a big part of the lineage of photography is making smaller things come together to form one larger image, and there's a certain way that they're read. And so this got me really interested in the idea of visual literacy and how images are read and understood based on being able to decipher what something is just based on being able to look at it and, you know, relate to what you already know about images and printing and the history of images and all that, and then you decide, okay, well, this is what I'm looking at. And I became interested in how that has changed over time, and decided that what I would do was I would follow through with this whole idea about earthquake prediction, and I would actually go through and try to make photographs based on all the different theories that were associated with earthquake prediction. Some of them are unusual weather patterns, the phases of the moon, strange animal behavior, flashes of light, past seismic activity. All of these things have been researched and studied in order to find a way to accurately predict earthquakes. So some of them are really phenomenological, like the animal. Some people think that if there's a correlation between lost dogs, whenever there's a lot of ads in the newspapers about there being a lot of lost dogs, then somebody thinks that there's probably going to be an earthquake. So I began to research all these things and started to make photographs based on that research, what I was finding. And so I borrowed some of the titles from the pictures that I was finding in the books that I was researching. And as I was going through this whole process, trying to figure out how to present the work and what to do with it, I decided to just make my own book, similar to the books that I had been using for research. So I made this book. It's just a booklet, and it's all done on a Xerox machine with the halftone printing process. It's all in black and white. And I really wanted to make something that looked like it came from that time period that was where earthquake prediction was popular for being researched. And so I didn't really want to make a typical photo art book. I just wanted to make something that felt different and outside of basically the fine art world. And I also wanted to do that with the exhibition. So that's why I ended up making everything on paper. I didn't want to do anything as a traditional kind of photograph. I didn't want to put anything in frames or anything like that. I wanted the show to look and feel like something that was a little bit past photography or photos or typical image making. I wanted them to feel like documents or feel like found images. So I started with making inkjet prints on paper because I was just very interested in how the paper felt and how it came off the wall and didn't have any, it didn't really have any of those typical sophisticated characteristics that a lot of other photographic prints have. So that, which is the work on this side of the wall over here. And one of the other things that I started doing was I started building these larger images, and these you can tell when you notice the grid pattern in them. They're all just 8 by 10 LaserJet black and white printouts. So I pieced them together on the back with Scotch tape in order to make the single image. And I really liked how you could make out the gridding pattern inside, because I thought that look was really appropriate for images that were about scientific research and gathering data and processing it. I felt that this grid had that feel to it. So so I made a bunch of these and decided to put them here with the work on the other side of the wall. And then I made about 125 of these zines, and that's pretty much it.